And good evening to anybody watching on the webcast this evening, and welcome to the Planning Committee meeting on the 13th of February. Item 1 on, well, first before I start actually, I think I'm just going to reorder the agenda, so I'm going to bring forward item 6 to be heard after item 5b, and that is to so that the last two items 5c and 5d have got Braintree District Council as the applicant, so we will leave those to the end. So so I'll move on now to the reordered agenda. So first item is apologies for absence. We have received apologies from Councillor Hayes, who's been substituted by Councillor Bowers. We've also received rather late apologies from Councillor Monday and Councillor Finken, who don't have a substitute for those members. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest or other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest relating to items of the agenda? Councillor Bowers.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to declare an NPI in items 5C and 5D as their BDC-owned assets, and as I'm the portfolio holder for assets at Braintree District Council, I feel for transparency reasons I should leave the meeting for those two items, which I will do so. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Likewise, I'd like to declare a substantive non-pecuniary interest in items 5C and 5D, Witham Town Council Town Hall, as I'm the portfolio holder for economic development, and we have funded this project via DLUC. I too will remove myself from the meeting and will not debate or vote in the item. The other item is the item B, land south of Witham Road, Black Notley, as the agent is a serving councillor. I don't know if you want to make that a joint declaration of interest, it being joint.
Yes, I'll make it that applies to all of us. We'll make that a joint declaration. Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. I will also declare an NPI on items 5C and 5D, Witham Town Council Town Hall. I have attended portfolio briefings where this item has been discussed, but I have not been involved in any decision making or grant funding, so I will remain and vote. I will be, just for clarity, be making a decision based on on planning matters, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. There are no other declarations, so we will now move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. So the minutes of the previous meeting on the 23rd of January have been circulated. Are you happy that I should sign these?
Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Thank you, Councillor Holland. Just sign those then. Right, item 4 on the agenda is public question time. We don't have any registered speakers under this item, so we'll now move to item 5 of the agenda, which are the planning applications. We actually don't have any speakers on any public speakers on any items this evening, so we will just move on to the officer's presentation. The first application we're going to be considering is application number 23/01552 full, which is land adjacent to Weavers Park, Courtauld Road, Braintree, and Melanie is going to give us the presentation from the officers. Thank you, Melanie.
Evening, members. This application before you this evening is for the erection of a 22 residential apartments with associated access, parking and amenity area on land adjacent to Weavers Park, Courtauld Road, Braintree. I just wanted to remind members at paragraph 2.2 in the published agenda, and I'll just read out the sentence. It says, it should be noted that the applicant has lodged an appeal for non-determination and that hearing date has been set by the Planning Inspectorate for the 26th of March. Therefore, the Planning Authority can no longer determine this application but outline its position for the appeal hearing by setting out its putative reasons for refusal in this case. So that's what you'll be doing this evening. So moving on to the presentation, this first slide shows you the site location plan. You can make out this is Bocking End. The office where we're currently sitting is just off the top here. We've got John Ray House, a listed property just outside of the application site, and this is part of the access road that runs to the back of John Ray House. There's a small disused roundabout, and then this area here is hard surfaced with previously used for car parking, and then this area here is soft landscaping. This puts the site in context with an aerial photograph. So here you can make out the roundabout, John Ray House, the area of car parking, and then the area of soft landscaping here. So this repeats really what was in the first slide in terms of the existing block plan. Most of the application site is either soft landscaping or previously hard surfaced land that was used for car parking. This insert from the adopted local plan shows the area of the site that's allocated as informal open space. And it's this part here of the application site, roughly a triangular piece of land that lies still within Weavers Park and is formally allocated as informal space. So the next few slides go through the detail of the actual application. This is the proposed block plan. It gives you an indication of where the proposed block will go. This is the area of land that was previously shown on the previous slide as being the informal open space. We've got a cycle and bin store to the south here. To the south of the application site is Tabor House, which was formerly a school building, has now been converted into flats, and then there's other properties along Coggeshall Road. This shows the layout of the site in a little bit more detail in terms of we've got the position of the car parking to the west of the application building. We've got then open space, which is where the informal open space, but this wouldn't be open to the public, it would be fenced in. And then you can see the position of the cycle store to the south of the proposed building. These show, the next two slides show existing elevations. So these are existing buildings within the context of Weavers Park. And this is the back of John Ray House, which would front onto the application site. And then this property here are the flats that back on to the south of the site. These are those elevations updated with the proposed three-storey building inserted. And again, these are the north and south elevations. You can see the profile within the second floor, third storey, shown in here with an area of flat roof. The next slide show the ground floor floor plan layouts. So the colour coding on here is the blue are one-bedroom properties and the green are two-bedroom flats. So we've got 2-bedroom flats on the first floor, and then mostly 2-bedroom on the second floor with, mostly 1-bedroom on the second floor, and then a 2-bedroom at the end here. This shows you the roof plan, and as you can see, this large area in the middle is flat roof. These are the elevations of the joined bin and cycle store, and then we've got a floor plan there. These show you sections through of the building, and this one is of particular interest because you can see how dominant the flat roof is on this plan. The next few slides show you photographs of the site. Given its proximity to the office, I'm sure you're probably all aware of the building, but this is looking across the site to Park View, which are the flats to the rear. This is a view of the site looking towards John Ray House in the background here, and then these trees here are located within Weavers Park. Again, a view of the site with then Weavers Park beyond. A better view of John Ray House, and this is the roundabout that I've mentioned before on that aerial photograph. This is a view in the opposite direction, so towards Tabor House and Coggleshaw Road. And then a view of the site from the access road off of Bocking End. This is a view of the site from the west. So this is taken from one of the footpaths running, or pavements running through Weavers Park. So there isn't a short update for members. So in the committee report, it mentions that an update from Natural England will be provided. And since the publication of the committee report, Natural England have confirmed that they have no objections to the proposals, subject to the council securing a financial contribution, that should be, not construction, financial contribution towards ecological mitigation known as RAMS. So by way of summary and recommendation, this application is a full planning application for the erection of 22 flats within a 3-storey building with associated access, parking and amenity area. As set out within the committee report, the proposals would result in a moderate level of less than substantial harm to the significance of the John Ray House, and a low level of less than substantial harm to the Braintree Town Centre conservation area. It would also result in harm to the non-designated Tabor House. There's additional harm caused by poor layout and design of the proposals, poor internal amenity for future residents, an unneighbourly relationship with existing occupiers, substandard parking spaces, insufficient financial contribution in lieu of on-site, affordable housing, and then a conflict with policy LPP 50 due to the loss of the informal recreation space. Informal recreation space. Officers have therefore concluded that the public benefits proposed by the application would not outweigh the harm indicated above, and therefore the recommendation would have been to refuse this application. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Melanie, for that very helpful presentation. Members? Councillor Shrier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, with regards to sort of the design, I was quite surprised that actually the application doesn't include any green roof on the cycle store, although I welcome the cycle store and I see that the biodiversity is quite rich. Also, it doesn't appear to have any solar panels for, obviously, for producing energy on there. And I actually think the roof space and roof allocation, the line, is not conducive to the surrounding buildings. And also that informal space, I'm really concerned about that because the volume of built space around there, I would have said that actually keeping that informal space for all the benefit of the people, not only the residents of Braintree, but those people who rely on green open space, informal as it is becoming so much more important to everybody. And I would not like to see that disappear. And I think potentially with that, there's an overbuild on the site if you take away that informal space and keep it as it is. So I think for that, I tend to agree with Officer's recommendation.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to add to Councillor Shrew's comments, I think they've almost missed a bit of a trick here because we favour some 1 and 2 bedroom flats within the district. In fact, they're essential to helping people get on the housing ladder. And I think they've just over-egged it slightly in this area. The design could have been much more in line with what's already around in the surrounding area. That would have probably assisted them with this application. I'm not saying it would have passed the test, but it certainly would have assisted in this case. And to the point around keeping informal public areas would have benefited not just the residents of Braintree, but also anyone wishing to have moved into that area or moved into one of those flats as well. It would be great if we could bring something forward in this piece of land because it is an unused piece of land. However, for the reasons outlined by the officers this evening, I too would side with their recommendation this evening. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I agree with the officer's conclusions. Something could go on there, but not this or the previous iteration. I just got 2 questions. Firstly, why is the site described as off Courtauld Road and the access is onto Bocking End and clearly is closest to Bocking End? And secondly, how did we again come into a position where we're facing an appeal for non-determination on this application? Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of the address point, that was how the applicant labelled the address and how the UPRN was then created. Because some members will be aware that this application follows a previous one that we determined this time last year, and so the same address point was then used for both applications, and that's what the applicant had put down on their application form. There is an access into Weavers Park that does come off of Courtauld Road. It runs down to some of the older school buildings, and as far as I'm aware, that was why that road was used to form part of the address. But I do recognise that it would seem to align better if it made reference to Bocking End, given that's where the vehicles would be coming from. In terms of the appeal against non-determination, all I can do is apologise and work pressures explain that there was a number of applications that I needed to get to planning committee, and this one fell off the not off the radar, but there were just many other applications I needed to get to before committee, and this was just one of them that was due to be written up, but due to time constraints and other appeal and committee requirements, other things took priority, unfortunately.
That's about it.
When did we find out that the applicant was appealing against non-determination, first of all?
I think it was just before Christmas.
So surely that should have been put in this report.
So we'd need to check the date, Councillor Bowers, but yeah, in terms of, we would usually specify that, so apology if that's not set out in the published report. Yeah, I think as well, to add to what Mel has said, where we do tend to have these situations arise, it's where it's made clear from the officer side that the officers would not be supportive of the application, so an appeal was then lodged to get the process underway effectively. But yeah, apologies if that date is not in the published report.
Madam Chairman, if I can go on, I gathered that because of the date of the appeal was so soon, it would have obviously been here some time. So surely that should have been put in the report, and the recommendation is actually wrong because we're not to determine it now. So the wording should have been changed in the recommendation as well, and it should have been put in there. An update's been put in there from Natural England, but no update was thought about putting underneath that an appeal had been put in for non-determination. So I think we need to sharpen up a bit there. Thank you.
Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, as Mel mentioned a few minutes ago, we did have an application on this site just about a year ago, which didn't find favour with the committee then, and we have 6 reasons for refusal in terms of officer recommendation for this one. 6 is an unusually large number, actually. You know, including the harm to heritage assets, the loss of the recreation space, which as colleagues have already mentioned, which I think is significant, and the poor design of the scheme in many respects. So, and then, you know, lack of detail on Section 106 agreements and affordable housing. So I don't see personally that there's a great deal of improvement or difference between what we have before us tonight and what we had a year ago, which is, you know, I think is obviously disappointing. I won't move anything in case anybody else wants to speak, but I'm inclined to agree with officers. Thank you.
I think I will also just chip in here, and that I actually agree with all of the officers' comments and the reasons for refusal. I think they're all completely justified. I think the difference between this and the previous application was the reduction in height, basically taken out a floor. So there are fewer flats. But the thing that's most concerning me actually is the amenity of the size of the flats actually for the 1 bedroom. And Councillor Rich is completely right that we do need some market 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom properties, but not at the expense of having absolutely minuscule rooms. And I think officer's quite right that a 1 bedroom property is usually quite often lived in by 2 people, and I think the size of the properties are really extremely small. And I'm always quite unhappy about having bedrooms on the ground floor facing public space with very little defensible any sort of defensible boundary, and obviously a solid boarded fence would have its other problems in terms of situation with a conservation area. So I don't think at all that the amendments that have been made to the design really have overcome some of those issues that we saw earlier. So if no other member would you make a comment, Councillor? Yeah. Yes, so Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The only comment I'd like to make is that as a matter of principle, I think we should be protecting the green public spaces within our urban settings. It's a really important aspect of improving well-being in urban settlements, and therefore as a matter of principle, as well as because this proposal runs contrary to the local plan, which has primacy in our decision making, I have enormous sympathy for the recommendations of the officers. Thank you very much.
So if no other member wishes to make a comment, would anybody like to move officers' recommendation if we had power? Councillor Diamond, happy to move that, and Councillor Holland to second. So it has been moved by Councillor Diamond, seconded by Councillor Holland, that if we had power to determine this application, we would have refused the application. All those in favour of refusal? Members, that is unanimous. Thank you very much, members. So we will now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 5B, application number 23/01911 full, land south of 231 Witham Road, Black Notley. We don't have any speakers this evening, although a statement was circulated to all members this evening of somebody who was intending to speak this evening. But we will just move on to the officer presentation, which is going to be given to us by Fiona. Thanks, Fiona.
Thank you. So this application seeks the demolition of a building known as the Piggeries, which is currently within agricultural use, and the construction of 2 3-bedroom dwellings with associated parking. So the application site is land south of 231 Witham Road in Black Notley. So for context, you can see the site here is outlined in green, so it's to the south of Black Notley. And I've got a bit of a closer view here, so you can see that this is the access proposed from Witham Road, so showing the site, and that existing formerly agricultural building, which is currently in a kind of a dilapidated state. So you can see that to the north of the property you've got a collection of residential dwellings, and to the south you've got kind of agricultural fields surrounding, and then you'll just see the corner of the golf course there to the south. So again, you can see the application site here. And also, just to point out, so the village envelope for Black Notley terminates just to the north of the site here. So it includes number 231, but kind of wraps around and goes up to the north there. So this site is outside of the village envelope of Black Notley. So for some context, you can just see the existing building here. So this is the proposed access to the site. You can see that there is already a kind of a access there, which currently forms access to the agricultural field, and you can see here Witham Road running along to the west of the site. So again, this is just from that kind of access gate that's existing. You can see number 231, it's that red brick building there, and the building that's proposed for demolition is that green building. Again, just a bit of a closer view so you can see the kind of perspective there. So on that left-hand side of the photo, you can see that there's a single-storey garage. That site there has also been subject to approval for a dwelling back in 2022. And again, just a bit of context, you can see here that it is kind of topographically it is a bit higher than the surrounding agricultural field, and you can see kind of the countryside setting there to the east and a bit to the south. And again, just to show kind of the current state of the building as well. So the proposal sees the demolition of the existing agricultural building and the construction of a pair of semi-detached dwellings with associated garden, parking and access. And here you can see the kind of elevational design to these. So there'll be 2-storey buildings featuring cat-slide dormers and a kind of a variety of fenestration as well. In terms of floor plan, you can see there, so they'll each be 3-bedroom properties. Just as by way of an update, Black Notley Parish Council, due to some technical difficulties, their comment came in quite late, so we received this towards the last few days, and they've objected to the application due to it being located outside of the village development boundary, and also they have concerns over access. So in terms of key considerations from consultees on this application, then our ecological consultant has raised a holding objection due to insufficient information regarding bats, and Essex County Council Highways have also stated that the impact of the proposal is not acceptable due to a lack of information regarding visibility spays and access arrangements. You'll also note that Essex Fire and Rescue have outlined that more matters would need to be addressed before access for fire service purposes can be considered satisfactory with regards to the access to the proposed dwellings. Just as an amendment to the reason for refusal for, just to reflect that fire service access, that's kind of just appended to the existing one for the highway safety and access reason. So in terms of the consideration of this application, in terms of the adverse impacts, and the site is located outside of a defined development boundary, and we do currently have a 5.8-year housing land supply, so this application was submitted prior to the update to the NPPF, and so we are considering it against that 5-year housing land supply. It's considered that the dwellings would be harmful to the rural character and appearance of the area, and as stated previously, insufficient information has been submitted in order to assess impacts on priority habitat, along with the acceptability of the proposed access. that application that was previously granted that I mentioned on the site to the west, it's considered that there would be impacts on amenity of that neighbouring property and vice versa, were both of the applications to be built out. In terms of benefits, then there are the benefits of the construction of 2 dwellings. However, having regard to the adverse impacts and benefits and the requirements of the NPPF as a whole, officers conclude that the adverse impacts of the proposals outweigh the benefits. Thank you.
Fiona, could you just show us on the the plan where the property where the planning permission has been granted for this additional property?
Yeah,
it's on the location plan.
So you can see, I'll just show quickly on this one, you can see this is part of the site for that proposed dwelling here. And if I just go back to, so where this existing outbuilding is here, there would be a dwelling here within this site, kind of following a similar building line to number 231.
Thank you. And the replacement dwelling, because I was a bit unsure, I didn't quite understand the relationship between the property that's being, or the planning permission that's been granted, and the proposed dwelling. How would they? Are they perpendicular to each other, or?
Yes, they would be. So the rear of the property that's been previously approved would face along here, so it would be facing towards the amenity areas of the proposed dwellings. So it's considered that there would be an impact on both the proposed dwellings and on the one that's been granted through a previous application that's not been built out yet.
Okay, thanks very much. I was slightly struggling to visualise that in my head. So that's very helpful. Thank you. Members, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is in a ward of which I am one of 3 representatives, and I think the officers' recommendations have been pretty clear on this one. In fact, we've got 4 reasons this evening. Again, another strong presentation that gives us due consideration to consider a refusal this evening. I think the one that I think is the most powerful one is the highways objection. On this occasion, we don't very often get them at committee. Often we do wish we would get more involvement with highways. I think they've given due consideration in this case. Given that it's a fairly fast piece of road, so you've got the change from a 40 mile an hour into 30 mile an hour, just outside of where the access is proposed to be. And not that I can obviously state it as a matter of fact, but people's driving habits aren't always that of sticking to the speed limit when entering Black Notley. Often, in fact, whilst I'm at the parish council meetings there, it's often brought up as one of the major concerns for people driving in and out of the village. So that alone, I think, even if there was just one reason to refuse this application tonight, it would be on the highways reason. I think the other thing just to bear in mind is that it's only at the committee this evening by virtue of the fact that the agent is a council, otherwise this would have been decided at officer level, so it wouldn't have even come to committee this evening either. So personally, I have no reason to go against that decision that officers would have made. And I'll wait to see what my fellow councillors say in response. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Any other members wish to make a comment on this application? Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I agree with those comments. For 8 years, I represented Black Notley as a county councillor, and I walked along that bit many times. And on the other side of the road, there is a quite narrow footway. There's none on the side of the road where the access will be. And as Councillor Ritchie says, that is where traffic goes quite fast, and one of the reasons is as they're coming out of the village, not only does they change the speed limit, but the road slopes away, so they tend to accelerate down the slope. So I'd have grave concerns about an access there. And if there was one in a 40, with those safety issues, how much of visibility display would county require, and therefore how much of that hedge would have to come out to provide it? So, I mean, that's a secondary reason for being concerned about that access. And apart from all the other points of detail, obviously this is an application in the countryside, and I think it's going to be very interesting going forward, not trying to set any balls rolling here, but how applications are dealt with if they go to a further stage. Now we have our local plan and our housing supply in place, but hopefully this one won't be appealed, and that'll be the end of it. Thank you.
Any other members wish to say anything? I think we are sort of coming into an unusual situation. We haven't been in for a while with the fact we do now have a 5-year housing land supply, and we can defend our local plan. So that's good news for us. I assume if nobody else would like to make a comment, would anybody like to move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Ritchie?
Yeah, I'll move officer's recommendation for refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott has a seconder. So it's been moved by Councillor Ritchie and seconded by Councillor Abbott that we refuse this application. All those in favour of refusal? Thank you, members. That again is unanimous. Thank you. So we will now come on to item 6 on the agenda, which is a tree preservation order number 072/2023, which is at the Old Magistrates Court in Witham, and Chris is going to be giving us a presentation on that.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, members. Just make that full screen. So this is an application where we have served a provisional tree preservation order in relation to a number of trees at the Old Magistrates Court development in Witham. I'll just take you through the location plan and some photographs of the trees. The reason the application is before members this evening is because there's been an objection to that confirmation of the TPO. Under circumstances where there are no objections, we're able to confirm the TPO under delegated authority because we referred where there's an objection that's been lodged. So just to give you the context, so the site, the Old Magistrates Court, so we're just off Newland Street in Witham, adjacent to Chess Lane, and the plan there shows highlighted the individual trees that are subject to the provisional order, so 12 in total. The development is relatively recent, within the last 5-6 years, I think. So some of this was replacement landscaping, some of it was existing landscaping features on the site that were retained as part of that development, and the provisional order effectively was issued and served given the notification procedure that was triggered for works to the trees, because the site is located within conservation area. So just running through the photographs, so photographs for each of the individual trees. So they do vary in size and scale, but all are considered to be good specimens, adding to the amenity of the development, and as they continue to mature will add to that quality, which we feel should be retained. So again, some of them slightly larger, more established, likely to have been part of the site before it was redeveloped, such as these ones, and a few others which are smaller specimens but have got the potential to obviously grow and establish much more. And then the oak, for instance, a much more established specimen there in terms of its visual prominence, and again some fronting the public realm. And the larger oak tree, which is located right in the corner of the site. So there is one objection, which, as set out in the report, we have considered. Effectively, the key thing really, in light of the concerns that have been raised, the confirmation of the TPO would not prevent, in the future, a resident for applying to undertake works to the trees would consider those applications on its merits, and certainly if there were concerns around damage that the tree was being, doing to foundations of a property or so forth, that's where we'd expect technical reports to demonstrate that. But again, there's an application process that can be followed for those. As it stands at the moment, we feel that as officers, the trees add to the amenity of the area, and therefore we're keen to see the retention of them and the protection of them through the TPO. There is just one minor change to mention, which is why we're suggesting a slight amendment to the published agenda, which is a slight modification to the schedule that would accompany the TPO in relation to T10, and it's just the description. So we're looking just to change that to grassed area in front of number 8 Magistrate Court, Witham, rather than the reference to number 9. That was just an error on the schedule originally. So with that modification, relatively minor modification, the officer recommendation is still to confirm the provisional tree preservation order in the interest of the amenity of the area. I'm happy to answer any questions, Madam Chairman.
Can I just clarify, Chris, that the TPO covers a group of trees? It's one TPO covering a group of trees rather than each tree individually.
So it would be, yes. So each of the trees would be subject to the TPO.
Okay. Members, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. Well, it's quite unusual, I think, to be putting TPOs on trees which have been planted as part of a recent development within the last decade. But if we can do that, I'm all for it. But also it's obviously to protect the existing larger trees. And for members who might not know the site, I'm sure some do, that used to be almost entirely covered in trees, that site. There was a large number of trees, almost all of which were destroyed to make way for the development. What you're seeing there now is a tiny remnant of what used to be. So I'm absolutely all for protecting what's left and allowing for the replanting to flourish. And as the officer said, a TPO doesn't prevent someone from applying to do work if they feel it's necessary, and then each case is judged on its merit. So I think there's, and given also there is clearly pressure on some of these trees, as indicated by some of the residents that they want work done to them, I think it's entirely the right thing to do.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I agree with Councillor Abbott. Obviously, the development at the time needed to make way by way of removing some of those trees, but I can't think of anything that would want to deter us from softening that development by ensuring that those trees are given protected status. And as pointed out in both the report and by Councillor Abbott, it certainly doesn't stop any householder from applying for any works to be done if needed to be done on those trees, or if a safety concern is highlighted that it wouldn't go through the due process and any safety measures applied to those trees under that order. So I don't see no reason at all to not go with the officer's recommendation this evening. Thank you.
Yes, I think we're probably all in agreement that trees in urban environment are particularly important, and particularly important where there's a conservation area. So, would anybody like to? I think we'd move officer's recommendation. This order. Councillor Holland. Would you like to move?
Yeah, I'd like to move officer's recommendation.
Okay. Seconder, please. Councillor Spray.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favour of confirming the TPO? Again, that is unanimous. Thank you very much, members. The final item on the agenda, we have no urgent business, so I will close the meeting at exactly 8 o'clock. Oh, God, sorry, no, we haven't. I've changed the agenda, forgotten. Sorry. Right, we'll come back to the other two items, but Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Bowers are leaving. Right. Apologies, members. So we'll come back to two remaining items. I think we will, as this is the same property, we will deal with them together with one presentation. But the applications relate to Witham Town Council, Town Hall, 61 Newland Street, Witham, and the numbers are 23/02988 full and 23/02996 listed building consent. So we'll hand over to Chris doing the presentation on this one. Thank you.
Apologies, members. Let me just reshare. There we go. So, yes, the last application seeks full planning permission and listed building consent for refurbishment of existing toilets at Witham Town Council. The building is listed, so it involves both internal alterations, but also the installation of new external entrance with ramp to the rear of the building. I'll just take you through the plans and images. So we have the location there of the town hall. Slightly more in focus site plan. The existing elevation, so this shows the rear addition to the building, which is a latter addition to the listed building, and the proposed elevation. So you'll see there the single-storey elements where the door is being introduced, along with the ramp and the associated railings, replacing the window. Again, you have the existing layout, and then you'll be able to see there the introduction of the ramp up to the rear, the insertion of the new door, and then the internal arrangement for the new toilet facilities. And some internal demolition of existing walls, which, as flagged within the report, these are later additions to the building, which don't raise any particular concerns from a heritage perspective. Just some photos. So again, you can see, compared with the rest of the building, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with, this is sort of a later addition. And you can see the window there on the left-hand side, which is due to be replaced with the door. So again, you can just see that circled in red there. And you can see the space around it. So where the space around the bins at the moment, that's where the ramped entrance and railings would be inserted. Full planning permission and listed building consent is required in this case. No issues in terms of the principle of improving the existing facilities. The proposal doesn't raise any concerns from a heritage perspective or a visual amenity impact. It doesn't reduce parking or accessibility for the building at all, and it's considered acceptable really in all respects. It doesn't raise any neighbour or amenity issues either. So there's been no objections to the proposal. Heritage officer supports it. So the officer recommendation is to grant both planning permission and listed building consent for the proposal. I should just say, and some members will recall, there was a similar proposal that was previously granted, but the difference here really is the insertion of the door. But previously, consent has been granted for a very similar scheme, and this is just effectively an evolution of that. Happy to answer any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking carefully at the photograph, the wider perspective of the rear of the building. In the vicinity that will become a door, at the moment there's a large green bin, a small bin, and what I presume is a cigarette or something. Is that what that is? The silver thing to the right of what will be a door. Has provision been made inside the plans or the proposals to relocate those in an acceptable manner?
So I must admit, Councillor Holland, I'm not entirely sure what the silver thing. It may well be something. I can't quite make it out from the photograph, but there's a lot of space to the rear of the building where those existing things can be effectively relocated without impacting on parking and so forth. So and the ramp is obviously relatively modest, wrapping around the building as well.
That being the case, Madam Chair, thank you for the answer. In keeping with my response and comments to the previous application, I think this is an excellent scheme overall, and I'm wholeheartedly in support of the officer's recommendation.
Can I also just ask a question, Chris? Are those cycle racks underneath the staircase, and presumably the ramp won't interfere with those? There's enough. It won't interfere with those cycle racks.
So if I've just put the proposed plan up, so you can see the the ramp area, which is the shaded, the area shaded darker on that plan, you then can just hopefully see the outline of the existing external staircase that you would have seen from the photo. So just judging on the photo where that rack is, it's kind of underneath the external staircase, so it should be clear of that. But again, if that needs to be relocated, it could be to the rear of the site. That wouldn't itself require permission at all. So I wouldn't foresee any issues in terms of that impact.
Okay, thanks. So it's not really totally relevant to the application itself. Any other members wish to make a comment on this? Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do know that there has been considerable discussion before the applications came to committee this evening between our officers, Whittam Town Council and the Historic Buildings consultant. And bearing in mind that, this is a listed building, a lot of care has been taken, by understanding, to make sure that this is, an appropriate change to the building. But I think it's a good solution. It's very practical. It will undoubtedly help people. And as I say, a lot of thought has gone into it beforehand. So I'm happy to move officer's recommendation unless anyone else wants to say anything. Thank you.
Does that find a seconder? Councillor Bousflint. Do you wish to say anything, Councillor Bousflint? No. Okay, it has been moved by Councillor Spray. Well, actually, I think we need to deal with each application separately.
Oh,
so, are you happy to move the full application? Should we deal with that
Chairman,
one first?
I am. Yep.
So, it has been moved by Councillor Sprang and seconded by Councillor Bousflint that we grant the application 23/02988 full. All those in favour of granting that application? Thank you, members. That is again unanimous. So we'll now move on to the list of building consent. Can I have a
Happy
proposer?
to move that. Thank you,
And seconder, same again. So Councillor Spray, seconded by Councillor Bowers-Flint, that we grant the listed building consent 23/02996. All those in favour, please show. Thank you, members. That again is unanimous. And we don't have any urgent business, so that does bring us to the end of tonight's meeting. Thank you, members.